In May of 2008, the long-awaited fourth part of the Indiana Jones saga arrived on the big screen. Released by Paramount Pictures and produced by Lucasfilm Limited, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did not receive the same affection that the original trilogy, which had come to an end almost 20 years prior, had garnered. The film featured an all-star cast, including Shia LaBeouf, Cate Blanchett, Karen Allen, John Hurt and Harrison Ford returning as the titular Dr. Henry Indiana Jones Jr. As before, the film was a collaboration between Hollywood legend Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. The fanciful plot is set in 1957, in the early years of the Cold War, and sees an aged Indiana Jones contend with getting older, an ex-wife, Allen, a surprise son, LaBeouf, an artifact of extraterrestrial origin, and those pesky Soviets. The Indiana Jones franchise has been no stranger to fictional military vehicles, generally designed according to the Hollywood rule of cool. Noted inclusions in the franchise are the Luftwaffe's Flying Wing, seen in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the heavy tank used by the Sultan of Hatay's army in The Last Crusade. The fourth installment in the franchise was no different, with the introduction of a fictional Soviet armoured vehicle known simply as the Jungle Cutter. Although a seemingly impressive design, the vehicle was little more than a plot device, being on screen for less than 30 seconds. Even so, the vehicle has gained quite an appreciation amongst fans of the franchise and appeared in various forms of merchandise. The Jungle Cutter is a purely fictional vehicle which presents a problem for Tank Encyclopedia. When tackling fictional and fake vehicles, we try to compare the vehicles to a real-world counterpart that may have inspired the vehicle's design, in part or in whole. The problem with the Jungle Cutter is that there is no true real-world comparison. The Jungle Cutter is depicted as a form of engineering vehicle commonly known as a combat engineer vehicle or armoured engineer vehicle. Vehicles such as this were and are quite real and have played an important role in the world's militaries since the Second World War. The British invented some of the earliest vehicles of this type for use during the D-Day landings. They included the famous Churchill AVRE and Sherman Crab. AVREs, or Armoured Vehicle Royal Engineers, continued to develop in Britain post-war, but numerous other countries developed their own. Notable modern examples include the American M728 CEV, the Spanish CZ1025E Alacran, and the Dutch AEV3 Kodiak. Vehicles like this are usually multi-purpose, essentially the Swiss Army knife of mechanised engineering units. They are designed to dig trenches, clear mines, or push through obstacles. To do this, they are often equipped with purpose-built modular equipment, from mine ploughs and bulldozer blades to digger arms and demolition mortars. CEVs are rarely designed for one purpose only, other than dedicated mine-clearing vehicles such as the German Keiler. The Jungle Cutter bucks this trend, seemingly having the sole role of clearing a path through dense vegetation. The Soviets, of course, also developed engineering vehicles. The majority of these were based on the plentiful chassis of the T-54 or T-55 medium tank, but also on heavier chassis, such as that of the ISU series. Earlier conversions were based on the famous T-34, which was plentiful after World War II. Types developed in the 1950s included the SPK-5 recovery vehicle and the later T-34TO, a mobile maintenance vehicle. The most comparable variant to the Jungle Cutter would have been the T-34 equipped with the PT-34 mine roller adaptation. But even that is a stretch given the sheer uniqueness of the vehicle in question. While as an older vehicle, the T-34 makes a more logical choice as the base of the fictional cutter, some sources also claim that it was based on the later and equally famous T-54 and T-55. The standard T-54 and T-55 were capable of carrying a dozer blade with minimal alteration to the vehicle, but there were some purpose-built CEV conversions. These included the ALT-55 armoured bulldozer, the T-55 MARRS recovery vehicle, and the later IMR. The IMR was the most drastic conversion of the chassis, featuring a bulldozer blade and crane arm. However, most of these conversions came later than the setting of the film. However, the IMR is notable as having the same plough-like dozer blade used by the Jungle Cutter. Although only comparable in role and not construction, the only real-world example of a vehicle built to plough through dense vegetation exists in the Crawler Crusher. This gigantic tracked vehicle was used for civil engineering in the USA in the late 1960s to clear trees in preparation for the Cross-Florida Barge Canal. The Crawler Crusher had no special equipment to fulfill its task, simply relying on sheer size, weight and power to plough through the trees. Designed specifically to clear dense vegetation, the layout of the Jungle Cutter is more akin to some sort of bulldozer or road construction vehicle than any armoured vehicle, even a CEV. Almost the entire front end is dedicated to mulching. Two large cutting discs covered in double-stacked teeth are suspended from the front of the vehicle on pivoting support arms that, presumably, set the width of the path being cut. As there is no other means of propulsion, these discs must be driven by shafts in the support arms, leading to bevel gears at the disc hubs. Directly behind this, protecting the lower front of the vehicle, is a pointed plough-like dozer blade, used to deflect felled trees away from the vehicle and to the side. It would also presumably stop larger trunks from falling onto the hull. Set atop this is a set of large contra-rotating toothed shredder drums that convert the vegetation into wood chips that are ejected via chutes from the sides of the hull. Behind this is the hull superstructure, housing the vehicle's power plant. A vehicle with equipment such as this would likely require a secondary engine to power the cutting equipment, especially to give the blades and mulcher enough torque to get through hard wood. Based on how the vehicle is depicted, chewing through the Peruvian jungle with ease, a simple power takeoff from the vehicle's own engine would probably not be enough. Some real vehicles, such as the British FV3902 Churchill Toad, once the most powerful mine flail ever built, required a large separate engine to power the immense flail. Having an independent engine or an extremely large single power plant at least explains the size of the apparent engine bay in front of the cab. Hanging off the rear is the driver's position, consisting of a simple square cab like on a bulldozer, with floodlights on the roof and a plain glass windshield, plot armour notwithstanding. Even worse, in the film, the vehicle is seen operating with the windshield open, leaving the poor driver open to receiving a face full of wood chips. The cutter is controlled with traditional bars for steering. A single operator is unusual but not uncommon for military engineering vehicles. A crew of at least 2 personnel is more common, with one crewman driving while the other commands and provides directional instruction. Optionally, a third crew member could assist in operating the cutting equipment. Neither would be a bad idea in this case, as the driver sits so far back, the sheer mass of the vehicle's front end and the angles involved would significantly hamper visibility. The Jungle Cutter rolls on a simple track system, apparently from a T-34, we'll come back to that later, with 5 road wheels per side and a forward drive sprocket. The tracks appear rather narrow. This would be unideal for a vehicle that seems to weigh the same as a mid-sized bulldozer and would be expected to operate in marshy landscapes. Wider tracks are generally used in these cases, since they lower the vehicle's ground pressure by distributing it across a wider area. The vehicle would also be extremely poorly balanced, since most of the cutter's mass would be over the front end, causing it to lean forward quite drastically unless a counterweight were applied. This would put extreme wear on the forward running gear components and make steering harder. To understand the entirety of the 30 seconds that the Jungle Cutter is on screen, an understanding of the events of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that led up to it is in order. A brief synopsis from the Internet Movie Database describes it thus. It's the height of the Cold War, and famous archaeologist Indiana Jones, returning from his latest adventure, finds out his job at Marshall College is in jeopardy. He meets Mutt, a young man who wants Indy to help him find the legendary crystal skull of Akator, and the pair set out for Peru. However, deadly agent Irina Spalko is searching for the powerful artifact too, because the Soviets believe it can help them conquer the world. Now in the Peruvian jungle, the Soviet column is forcing their way through the dense vegetation on their way to the legendary city of Akator, also known as El Dorado. At the head of the column, the jungle cutter mows through trees like a spoon through stroganoff, with Indy and his associates Mutt and his mother Marion Ravenwood held captive in a following truck. After an argument over Mutt's legitimacy and Marion's marriage choices, they manage to overthrow the soldier guarding them and gain control of the truck. From somewhere inside the truck, Indy produces an RPG-7 4 years too early, and aims at the jungle cutter. He has a clear shot since he's just a few vehicles behind, yet Dr. Jones somehow misses most of the vehicle and hits the mulching rig at the front. This blows off one of the cutting discs which, still spinning, cartwheels down the middle of the Soviet column, almost cutting Indy's truck in half. That sequence covers the entirety of the time the jungle cutter is on screen. It was only a plot device to explain how the Soviets go through dense jungle with an entire column of vehicles, from trucks and 4x4s to amphibious cars. Unverified claims suggest that it was planned for the vehicle to have more of a presence, with Indy fighting Soviet troops atop it, akin to the tank scene from The Last Crusade. However, this was cut quite early. The jungle scenes featuring the cutter were shot in the jungle of Hilo, Hawaii in 2007, with the abundant tropical forests doubling as Peruvian jungle. The vehicle was designed for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull by Luke Freeborn. It was not always known as the jungle cutter. Early design work in digital storyboards and pre-visualization reels identify it as the Jungle Eater. This older design is much more bulldozer-like, with the vehicle pushing a large tilling drum akin to a minesweeper, such as the Minebreaker 2000/2. This design was dropped in favour of the one seen in the film. Mr. Freeborn is known for his work on films such as Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events, Men in Black 3, G.I. Joe Retaliation, and others. Attempts have been made to contact Mr. Freeborn about the design process for the jungle cutter, but as yet there has been no answer. As a result, like Indiana Jones searching for a mythical artifact, detailed investigative work has revealed some of the vehicle's secrets. This full-scale working prop was built on the hull of a sub-variant of the American M548 cargo carrier. The M548 was based on the famed M113 armoured personnel carrier and came in task-specific variants. These included the M727 Hawk and M730 Chaparral surface-to-air missile carriers. According to brief correspondence with a researcher from the Indiana Jones subreddit, Mr. Freeborn stated, "The jungle cutter was based on an aluminium Arctic rocket launcher base. I don't know that it was scrapped, but I can imagine it was recycled for its aluminium. I attempted to find it 6 years back for another project with no success. At least I was able to get the toy version out of the deal." That identifies the base vehicle as either an M727 or M730. Both of these had been phased out of US Army service by the late 1990s, so one would have been easy to come by for the prop department. Also, as these vehicles were essentially flatbeds with the missile systems removed, there would have been a lot of free space to build upon. Although well disguised, small details of the real vehicle remain apparent. While the track system is easily identified as part of the M113 family, the giveaway for identifying the base for the jungle cutter lies with the superstructure at the front end, disguised by the shredding drums. On the sides of this superstructure, the original doors to the driver's cab remain, with handles and footholds. Another identifier is the headlight cluster, which, although hidden by the dozer blade, remained completely original. Most members of the M548 family shared these features. The driver's cab had the upper section with the canopy removed. This may not have been a drastic modification, as several vehicles of the M548 family had foldable or removable canopies. Although the vehicle is shown being driven from the rear in a bespoke cab, the prop was actually driven from the original position, hidden at the front left. The driver was able to see roughly where he was going thanks to the faux vent on the front left corner of the shredder drum housing. To gain access to this position, the original door could be opened, and the vented hood hinged backwards. Despite only 30 seconds of screen time, the Jungle Cutter, in a move we here at Tank Encyclopedia like to call Indiana Jones and the Peddling of the Merch, went on to appear in tie-in media and be reincarnated into multiple kids' toys. As part of the mainline 3 3/4 inch action figure range produced by Hasbro, a rather accurate playset of the Jungle Cutter was released. Remarkably, a number of the M548 features that remained on the film-used prop were also present on the toy, such as the original door handles and footholds. Interestingly, the hinging faux vent hood for the driver is also included, although lifting it simply reveals hidden detail. A small-scale model was also released as part of Hasbro's Titanium series. A Jungle Cutter was also released as part of the tie-in LEGO range. Not only was it available as the building set, but it also appeared in the video game LEGO Indiana Jones 2 – The Adventure Continues, released in 2009. Unfortunately, without further correspondence with the designer of the vehicle, more information about the design and development behind the Jungle Cutter may never come to light. What happened to it after filming wrapped remains a mystery. The Cutter was used as a plot device in the Crystal Skull, an underused vehicle that, despite obvious flaws, was still unique and imaginative. Still, in the real world of military vehicles, the Jungle Cutter would not make sense, being over-engineered to do a job that could be done just as well with bulldozer blades and brute force. So, what do you think of the Jungle Cutter? And which other vehicle should we cover next? Share your opinions in the comments section below. If you haven't done so already, we invite you to subscribe to stay updated on future content. If you'd like to contribute further, consider supporting us on Patreon or PayPal. We want to especially thank our medium and heavy tank Patreon supporters: Alex Harvey, Dan Fitzpatrick, Dave Shuford, Leslie Holkower, Michael Herman, Owen M, and Wolfhund. Your generous contributions help fund our research, illustrations, and video production. Until next time, keep us in your sights.